Hi, if you're watching this video, you probably have one of these old BMWs and you might be having problems with your ABS pump. So I actually had one of these years ago. I don't have this car anymore, but I had it years ago and I had a problem with the ABS pump when I bought it. And I took off the ABS pump and checked it out and discovered that it was just some wiring issue that was causing the problems. And I took pictures of it. I took 3 pictures and created a little write-up, an HTML page about how I fixed mine. And then I put it up on my personal website. And for years now, I've been getting the occasional email from someone who either is asking me questions or saying thank you that they were able to fix their pump. And so I decided, since my website is so obscure and maybe not a lot of people might find that information and it may be helpful to more people, that I would kind of create a YouTube video. And I apologize, I'm not a professional YouTuber, and these are just going to be 3 pictures with my commentary on how I rewired my pump. So hopefully it helps you, and let's move on. So again, I bought this car and it had problems with the ABS pump, and so I removed the pump, and I'm looking at my web page here, and it says that I removed the pump by taking off 5 or 6 fluid lines, disconnecting the electrical connector, and removing that one nut at the front end of the pump assembly. It took me about 10 minutes to remove it. It says it might be easier if you remove any little bits that are hovering above the pump assembly. I took off the MAF and air tube and moved some other stuff around to make it easier. Once you get it off and you get it to your bench, I clamp mine in a vise carefully with some towels or whatever, and clamped it in a manner so that I could remove the plate on the bottom. My notes here said that there are 6 Torx headed bolts that you remove to get to the area of the pump, and then this is what it looks like when you get there. And you can see the solenoids here. There's 6 of them, and then the solenoids are wired back to this connector using this really crappy flexi cable. It's like this plastic mylar thing, and what happens is either the solder joints on the flexi cable right here go bad, or over here at the solenoid side they go bad. But either way, these things go bad, and what you need to do is you need to just rip out this flexi cable and replace it with wires. Just use individual wires going from each connector to each solenoid. So you could probably work it out with a meter and just looking at the the pins here before you tear off the flexi cable. But I did create this little wiring diagram here for my own notes. So as you can see here, it's in the same orientation. The C means that each one of these pins on the solenoids are connected together. They're all common. And then there's also the pins 2 and 7 are also common on the connector. So this common connects to this one, to this one, to this one, to this one, to this one. So what I did is I took one wire and I jumpered it from here to here to here, 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 and here to all the C's. And then I had another wire, and I went from solenoid 1 here to pin 1 there, and then solenoid 5 here to pin 5 there, and then solenoid 3 here to 3 here. And so that's what I did for each one of these solenoids. You might want to get some good quality silicone wire, because these wires are really short, and I heated up the wires quite a bit. I'm pretty good at soldering, but I will say I did a pretty messy job of this. I'm going to go on to the next picture now. see, hopefully. Yep. So here's what it looked like when I finished soldering. You can see my solder doesn't look the best here, but you can see the yellow wires are the commons between all the different solenoids. I don't know if the polarity matters or whatever, but I would do it the same as the diagram, because that's how I pinned it out when I did the my diagram, when I drew up my schematic diagram. And as you can see here, the wires I used, they're not too thick. You know, I wouldn't know what gauge wire to use, but you can see the insulation melted here, but I made sure there was no shorts or anything, and everything was insulated okay. And then I wrapped it all up and put it back together, and I went kind of a bigger gauge wire than you probably needed to. It says here I use 16 gauge, but my notes say 18 gauge might be easier. But you know, worst case, if for some reason you wire it up and it doesn't seem to work right, you might try a different wiring. But I imagine the wire size isn't too critical here. But again, it says here I use 16 gauge. Once I got done, I bled the brakes normally, starting at the farthest wheel and working my way in the usual way, you know, having somebody step on the brakes. And I bled them until the fluid was clear, so effectively changing the fluid. I've heard, my notes here say that there was people talking about shorting the relays to activate the pump during bleeding. I didn't do any of that. I just did a normal pump and bleed kind of thing. And then when I was done bleeding the brakes, my ABS light went off, and the ABS was working normally. So it's pretty straightforward. Again, I'm sorry I don't have moving video, but this was quite a few years ago, and I just took some pictures after while I was doing it and threw them up on a web page. So anyway, I hope this video helps somebody, and you can you know, message me or send me a note below if you have any questions. Thanks.